Can we talk a little bit about the neuroscience of self-love?
Absolutely. That's such a great thing to look at. Now, the first foundational thing to understand is that our brains can change. It's called neuroplasticity. And this is something that is fairly recent. I mean, just like what many experts are saying about eating disorders today, we used to be taught that like your brain is the way that it is and it can't change, and brain cells like are always going to be the same. And then there were these discoveries of like your brain has neuroplasticity. It's plastic, it can change. And what's really exciting, not only that your brain can change, but that we can change our brain. It's not something that is just changed by, environmental things and, those things impact us. But when we know how our brain works, we can intentionally change it in the ways that serve that frequency and that match, that alignment with our self-love. So what fires together, wires together. What fires apart, wires apart when it comes to our brain. So we have lots of different associations, right? It's like you start hearing holiday music and now you want pumpkin, or you want, it's like that doesn't happen when you hear summer tunes, just like think of how much more candy cane and peppermint is sold during like, and that has nothing to do with that it's cold outside. It has something to do with the association, the music, the snow, the whatever is fired and wired together. So we have what has been repetitively put side by side, now fired together, and now it feels like the same thing, right? So when it comes to our self-love, our self-care, we have things that are fired and wired together. And they're just associations, and associations that can change. So the neuroscience of it is that we create patterns, and those things become our habits, our identity, and all those things can change because it just started with a pattern being created. So here's a really interesting thing to try. Do something loving for yourself. Take time, take a moment, put yourself first, buy yourself something nice, get pleasure out of the food that you're eating. And what's going to happen when you're mindful and, take off the judgment, just notice what have you reinforced? What has been fired and wired together when it comes to that self-care? Because let's take eating, for instance, right? I'm eating a dessert and I'm getting pleasure. I'm letting myself enjoy it. For some people, what's fired and wired together with that is like, oh, this is so great. I'm so glad that I can enjoy this. This is special. And for some people, what's fired and wired together in that is terror. This is not okay. This is wrong. It is wrong for me to have pleasure in eating. It is wrong for me to be enjoying this. It is wrong for me to be taking this moment. And that has nothing to do with what is any sort of like right or wrong morality. That has to do with what has been fired and wired together in your mind. So when we can notice the neuroscience, the things that are connected and associated in our brain with the things that we actually want to do to nurture and care for ourselves, and see, okay, is that serving me or is that not? And then taking the steps to change how our brains are fired and wired together. And a quick little note here, because so many people, it comes up as a misunderstanding of like, but I've always been this way and it's been so long. And like, it's going to be really, it took 40 years to do this to my brain. It's probably going to take 40 more to change it. Here's the thing. Your brain is changing all the time. And the only reason that it's felt like the same stuff for a long time is because you've been recreating your brain in the same way over and over. You have a whole new brain. Like we keep on creating our brain. And so it's not that it's been this way for a long time. It's been that you've been reinforcing the same things for a long time. And when you shift that, then you can quite rapidly, especially when you have effective tools, recreate a new brain. We've seen people go from like 35 years of an eating disorder to in like less than a week doing enough in their own brain so that they don't have that compulsion anymore and they have freedom. It can happen very quickly when we know how to work with ourselves and with our brains and with our patterns, as opposed to what works against them, and understand the neuroscience behind it, because it's right there. Like, it's like we have power. Isn't that cool?
It's amazing. Yes. So is it something as simple when we're talking about the shifting of the brain, when we're talking about the shifting of the thoughts, is it something as simple as just shifting the thoughts, or does it go way deeper than that?
Yes, great, great question. So a confusion that happens sometimes is that we believe that our thoughts are us, and then we believe that all of these things that our thoughts are guiding us to are true about us. And when we take a step back and see like, oh, there's me and truly who I am, and then there are these thoughts that my brain is creating, and to be able to observe those instead of just feeling sort of like it's the same thing as us, then that's a really powerful, powerful place to come from. So I'll give you an example. If you have a thought that says, oh, well, I'm doing this because of, something that happened in my childhood. Your experience is valid, your feelings are valid, but that conclusion from that thought of like, well, I'm doing this because of something that happened in childhood, and until I totally sort out this thing that happened in childhood, then I simply can't even hope to change any of my behaviors now. What is happening is that one job of your thoughts is to keep you the same as before. Your brain has all of these resources for you to not change. And so that reinforcement of like, when you follow out your thoughts, you're like, oh, a lot of these thoughts are leading to the conclusion that I should just stay the same. And when we can take a step back and put really great tools into place to actually shift those patterns, then we can feel safe in change. We can feel safe in changing our brains. So a lot of things that feel like there's some other issue or a deeper issue is actually because your thoughts are reinforcing that belief for you. Because if you think it's like this exploration for the rest of your life to find some deeper hidden meaning to make change right now today, then you can see like, oh, well, that's the exact thing that my brain wants to do is stay the same. But it's actually safer to change. It's actually safer to create a better world. And that's a reassociation that we need to create to do that. Does that make sense?